file. Where did it go? Oh, okay, I didn't lose it. It's just below the. I had to scroll down. So let's click on it because we will be using this method from this FS object. Now you can actually create your own object. I mean, you can create your own named object. You don't need to use FS for that, and I'll be showing you how to do that. But we will need this read file method. Now this read file method needs to have something called a file name as an argument. Then it can also have something called an argument called options. Then also the callback, the most important part of this function. Why? Because this function will be an anonymous function. If you look at the example that's provided by the API, then it's telling us that this function is the it is the callback function. Why? The callback function will go inside that file that you specify in this first argument. It will go. The read file method will go inside this file, and then it will extract every sort of data that it finds from that file. And this callback, you can use this callback to pull all the data and manipulate all the data, and then you can keep back all those data using the same callback. So it's a pretty amazing stuff to do. So we will be using that, and we will also look at, as we were talking about, something that's known as I don't know why do I always lose all the names. Okay, so we will also use something maybe. Let me show you. So we will be using read file, we will be using create server, and those are the two basic methods that we will be using in this example. So let's get started. Now before we can get started, we will need to get the we will have to create the files. So head over to your previous script that we created in the previous episode. So let's erase all of this stuff. We don't need them, and we can actually make our code far more concise. We don't need this object right now. And so the pretty interesting part in here is that if you look into the HTTP module, it's quite different than what we use. Okay, let me head over to the synopsis. So the standard way of using the name is request and response. As I was talking about, both of them are objects that we will be passing as an argument to this anonymous function, which in turn is an argument for this create server function. Now, you can actually shorten the name. You don't have to. This is not an. I mean, there are no hard and fast rules. There are no actual hard and fast rules in which you will have to do. Like you won't have to create a name that's called a request or that's called response. So you can Node is pretty much flexible in naming. Also, you can also name your object that's RUQ or short form for request, or you can also go for RES, which is the short form for response. So you can also create the name for your own object, as I was talking about. So let's head over to the project file that we created earlier in the earlier episodes. We want to create a JSON file. So right click on this project file and then new from template, then head over to JSON. You will find something called JSON if you're using Aptena Studio like me. So click on it, and then you can name it as anything as you want, but I would like to create the name as featured content. Okay. So our JSON file is basically empty. Let's save this and we can close this. I created them so that I could show you what's going on behind the scenes. We don't need them right now. So this is the blank JSON file. You don't have anything right now. So JSON is also a part of the JavaScript programming language, but it's a little different than what JavaScript provides you. If you look at the file extensions in here, this server that we created earlier, the simple server file, has got the extension called JS, and now the JSON file that we created right now has got the extension .json. This entirely means JavaScript object notation, which means you can entirely create a file based on JavaScript's objects. So this concept will be used to develop application in later episodes when we go for real life database interaction with our node application. So if you're interested to read about how this JSON type databases work, now let me tell you, there are two forms of database. Nowadays we get one is called the SQL type databases, which uses the structured query languages or a structured query language to actually communicate with the database. And there are another form which is actually popularly and quite hilariously known as the NoSQL, which does not rely on the traditional usage of SQL or structured query language. It relies on the same thing as we are talking about. It relies on JavaScript. So one of the major example about this JSON type databases, or more importantly the NoSQL databases, is the MongoDB. So you can head over to MongoDB, www.mongodb.org, and if you go to docs, you will see that it has got something like, let me scroll it down, it has got something like Node.js.